Hi, this is Kelly from Made to Shine Designs, and this is the tutorial for what I call the star flower, and I'm going to show you how to put that together. What you're going to need, the things that you should have come in your kit, are 7 of these tiny little pom-poms, one 10mm felt ball. There should be 2 leaves, should be 6 of these little rectangles, and then 6 what I call short pointed petals. So you have those came in the kit. What you will need to assemble this, of course you're going to need a pair of scissors, really small, very sharp tip scissors are best. You're going to need a glue gun. I use a Surebond or fine tip ones are easier to use, you'll find, so you can get that, just a little bit of glue in there. And then as an added thing, it's not completely necessary, but I find it a lot easier if you can have a pair of sharp needle tweezers. Okay, so we're going to get started by adding on these little pom-poms onto the top of the felt ball. So you're going to need, again, I'm going to throw my little pom-poms here. You're going to need just a tiny bit of glue. So again, that's where that, just a tiny bit of glue right here on the top. Okay, and then you want to use your tweezers and carefully place that pom-pom right on the very top and give that just a few seconds to dry. All right, and then we want to add another drop of glue. Now we're going to add the other 6 pom-poms right around the edge of that. So right up against the edge, we're going to put that in there like that. Okay, and just to be sure that we get these balanced out correctly, I like to go crosswise and not go around, because if you go around, you may wind up at the end with a little bit too big of a gap or not enough room to get that pom-pom in there. So I find it's easier, go ahead and go to the other side. These little pom-poms run away from you. And put that one directly across. Okay. And then you want to carefully place 2 on either side here. So that makes it a little bit easier to get them more carefully spaced when we go ahead and make that straight line of 3 across there. All right, so I'm going to place a drop of glue here. And this one, fill in that gap. Whatever color your felt ball is underneath, it can be any color. The little pom-poms are white unless you specify differently. You want to completely cover that felt ball so it's not showing from the top. So now we're going to add that last bit of glue on this side. Just squeeze that tiny little pom-pom right in there. Okay, and you see how that little star pattern is starting to develop. Now we're going to go on the other side. Do the same thing. Put a drop here. And you want to take your time with this. If you get them kind of in the wrong place, you're going to have a hard time getting them off or replacing them. So you don't want that. There's a little bit of black felt. I'm going to get it off there. All right. And then that last one. Okay. And this just gives the cutest little center to this flower. But not only that, it's not flat because we've put it on a felt ball. If we look at it sideways, you see it has that dome effect. I've talked about before, real flowers are not usually flat. They have some roundness to them. So we want to try to make them as realistic as possible and have the centers be a little bit rounded. So that's done. That's the center of this flower. So we can put it over to the side. Now for the second step, we're going to be using these little rectangles. And what we want to do is round the corners of one end of these rectangles. So we're just going to very carefully, just going to round the corners. So it's going to be more of like an oval top instead of a square top. All right, so it's like that. Do that for each of these pieces of rectangle. Just take the little tiniest bit of the corner off of this and round that. And if you prefer, a different shape, you could always start down lower and actually, make it more of like a daisy petal shape if you'd like. You can, by all means, individualize these. Okay, last one. All right, clean up our little scraps here. All right, so now we've got 6 of these little rounded, and these are going to be the first layer of this flower. So you kind of just want a little bit of it to poke out around each of these felt balls. So there are 6. So if you want to think about it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you want like the center of this petal to be at the point where the two little pom-poms join, and that way you'll make sure that they're evenly spaced around. So we are just going to add a little bit of glue right here on the bottom of this petal. And this first one is kind of going to establish how far you want this little petal to stick out. So I tend to try to make it pretty much even with the bottom. And you can see there's a little bit further, but pretty much even with the bottom of the felt ball. And then that comes around. If you see something on your shape that you don't like, I see that for this one, I've got this little side standing up a little bit more, so I didn't quite get that curved as nicely as I want, so I'm just gonna trim that off. Okay, so then we're just gonna go around that same way. We're gonna take all 6 of those and do the same exact thing. Go all the way around and just center it. And I'm going to kind of overlap one over the last one, just a tiny bit, but just keep making sure that the center of this petal is just about centered with where the 2 pom-poms meet. And that way you'll make sure that they're evenly spaced, and then also kind of eyeball and try to make sure that you've got the same height of the petals sticking up. And you're just going to work your way around the outside of the felt ball. And you'll notice I got the glue just a little too high right there. And if you do, that's going to show and kind of always be shiny there. So try to keep that glue down below. Do what I say, not what I do, those kind of rules. Okay, now for this last one, we could just stick it right on top of both of these like this. But do you see how all of these have kind of followed this, where this one is going under, this one's going under. They're overlapping in the same way. So we kind of want to see if we can try to get this one to overlap in the same way. So we want to try to get it to kind of tuck under this one when we go to put it on, and make it where it's still, see how it's going to make it where this one is lapping kind of in the same way. So just kind of pay attention to that when you go to put it on. So over that one and just a little under this one if you can. that one's sticking up a little further. I'm gonna put it back down. All right. So now you wind up with all 6 of them going around. And you can kind of see, I got this one up a little higher, so I'm gonna put some new glue on this one and redo that. Make it go down a little lower. We want them to be even. I was concentrating more on showing you that over and under thing, and I didn't get it to the right height. All right, so now that looks better. That looks like it's the same height as the other ones. Okay, so you're left with this. This is the next part of this flower. Okay. This is what it looks like underneath. All right, and then the last part, we are going to add these outside petals. So these were the interior petals, these are the outside petals. Now for these, there's some different things that you can do. You can add some detail to them. Some people like to draw, use really fine tip markers, and you can draw the leaf like veining on there. I always like to add just a tiny bit of kind of cupping to the petals, just because to me that's a little more realistic about what petals kind of are shaped like. So I just kind of do a little pinch with a little bit of glue right down there and see what that does. It still makes a flat edge, but it makes just a little bit of this petal cupped. So then when I go to put it on here, I can kind of let that part that's cupped kind of just mold around that felt ball. And then you see, if we just did it flat, there's not really anything for that to kind of sit on. So then we're trying to like glue it, and then it doesn't cup around the petal itself. It's just a little harder to get it to cooperate with you. Now what I'm going to do is everywhere there's an overlap is where I'm going to put a petal. So right there where you see where these 2 petals come together, that overlap, that's where I'm going to put this petal. So it's kind of like the petal is going to come up between these where they overlap up here on top. So you got it sitting down in that little cup, and then just up here around here. So up here between these 2. So where I'm going to put the glue is, I want to have a little bit of glue coming up the sides, down on the bottom, and up on this side, so that then when I go to attach it on, I'm setting it where the felt ball, it wraps around the felt ball on the bottom, and then those 2 sides, I can then kind of grab them like that and glue them down. Now, thinking ahead, again, when I want to make this go all the way around, I'm gonna want for it to overlap, overlap, overlap. I'm not gonna want the last one to be like that. I'm gonna want the last one to be part of that continuous like overlapping. So knowing that, then this first one, I need to not put glue on this side. So for this first one, what I'm going to do is only put glue on this bottom and this right edge for me. Now, if you're left-handed, you may like going around the other direction. That's fine. Then you would leave this side off, whichever direction, it doesn't really matter. But for this first one, we're just going to put glue on this bottom edge and then up this side a little bit. Okay, and again, I'm going to place it where it's going to come up and be the point coming up between the 2. And the bottom is going to be glued to that felt ball. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and do all of these, just a tiny bit of that cupping, do all of these together. So they're all done first. now that this is done, we'll be able to just go ahead and glue them all around. Okay. So one at a time. Now, from the rest of them, we're going to be able to do the glue around both sides and the bottom. So kind of like push that down with my fingers to give a flat surface to glue to. Okay, and wrap it around the bottom. And then make sure that the height is about the same. And you're coming around where that tip is between those two smaller petals. One of my favorite centers of these little flowers. I love these little pom-pom centers. You notice that I'm kind of, as I'm going along, I'm kind of pulling and stretching on the leaves and getting them to kind of lay the way that I want to. You can play with that also with tiny little curling irons. You can take these petals and you can spray them with hairspray, and then you can take curling irons and you can do them, you know, however you want them to lay, and they'll stay that way. All right, so now we're back to that first one, and again, we want this one to overlap behind this one and underneath that one. Okay, so you get that continuity of the petals going around. Now, I'm noticing, if you look at this, I've got that one a lot lower than I've got these. As I worked my way around, I came up higher on the ball. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that apart where I did that first one and pull it up just a little bit. It's a great thing. You can fix your mistakes. Not hard at all. Okay, now I think that those will be a little more even. Okay, so that underneath, and this one's going to go underneath that one. Yeah, that's pretty even now. All right, and then you may want to add a little glue there on that one, because remember that one we didn't have any glue on that side, just so that goes down. Okay, now most likely you're going to have some places where, like, you've got more. If you look at this leaf or this flower, it looks a little bit off center because I wound up having the bigger space between these two than I do these. That's just going to happen. You really cannot do it perfectly. But the way that you can fix that easily is that's where you want to put your leaves. So you could do your leaves like this. Okay, so then that's going to make that flower look a lot more balanced. It's going to look like, you know, it's supposed to be that way. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those two. And again, if you're unhappy with it and you want to fix that, then just, you know, pull the glue away from the felt. It comes apart pretty easily and you can replace it. That's another option. Okay, and then I'm put some glue down the base here. And then I'm going to wrap those right there. And that is the completed star flower. Thank you very much for joining me today.